Father's Day. The mic is like attacking me. For Father's Day, I just want to do something a little bit different. So we're going to take 5 or 10 minutes at the start to just pay tribute to the fathers and the men. The fathers, the spiritual fathers, the grandfathers, or the fathers that are to come. And we just want to thank you for all that you have done, that you have continued to show up. And so what I want to ask is that there is pages around the walls, and there's 2 on a table at the back. So you'll see there's 3 here, a couple along this wall, and 2 on the table at the back. They are the men in this church that have the ability to impact our church. And so what I would like you to do is just write something that you think of when you think of them, so, and how it has impacted you. So if it's like one Sunday I was really down and you stepped back and actually had a coffee with me and we had a bit of laugh and it really just picked me up, just stick that on the page if you can. You don't have to sign it. You can if you want to, but you don't have to sign it. But if you can try get to every man and quickly as possible, write something down for me. Is that all right? There's markers on this chair and there's markers down the back. Go. And all the men have to do it for each other as well. You have like 6 minutes to write on every single one of them. Yes, everybody. Men, women, and children, all write on them. Don't go straight for your fathers, Erin. those of you who are still writing, continue to do so. I can talk while you're moving around. That won't distract me. The only thing that will distract me is John shouting across the room. No. So today's sermon is about unexpected heroes. So when we think of superheroes, we think of people with superpowers or famous people who can have huge impact on the world, who are known by everyone. But really, heroes are dads. You guys are the real heroes who impact your families. Dads that continue to show up. Their presence directly impacts their legacy and what happens to those who come after them for generations and generations to come. We think that big acts are the only ones that have lasting impacts in our children's lives. But that's not the truth. In our children's lives, in the church lives, where the real impact comes from is you guys using your main ministry. And the main ministry for men is the ministry of showing up. You have to show up again and again and again and again, because that's what builds real relationship. And that's the best way to get into somebody's life and impact the generations that come after them. I want to show this in real life. So the ministry of showing up was exposed to our family when my daughter Erin, so she was out at a party and she was with all of her friends, and there was people there that she didn't know. They were seeing this DJ, and she was talking to this girl all night, and kind of having great fun with her. And our friends were calling Erin, 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 and then some of our friends were like, Reid her. And the girl said to her, "Is your name Erin Reid?" And Erin says, "Yeah." "Why? Why do you know my name?" And she was like, "Is your dad John Reid?" And Erin said, "Yeah, that's my dad." And she looked at Erin and she said, "Your dad saved my dad's life." Right? And so Erin came home and she was beaming with pride for her dad. And she was like, this girl came up to me and she was like, "Your dad saved my dad's life." And so then we got the rest of the story off John. So John didn't set out to save his life. John wasn't trying to save him. John wasn't trying to fix him. John said to him, "That's my number. And if you need anything day or night, just ring me. And we can talk it out and see how we get on." And so what happened was this guy would ring John and John would ring him, and they'd check in on each other, and they built this lovely relationship. And the relationship that stemmed from John showing up again and again and again and again. And that in turn made this guy turn his whole life around, which has impacted the generation that's come after him. That his daughter, who doesn't know Erin and doesn't know John and has never met any of us, knew our names and was like, "Your dad saved my dad's life." And that is the ministry of showing up, and that is the impact that it has on real lives in real time, not just stories that we're like, "Oh yeah, in generations to come, something will be different for our family because I was there." No, that's truth, and it's revealed in front of your eyes to show that the ministry of showing up is important. So I want to look in the Bible, because there is a man that we see this happening with. And I picked this man because he's not as well known. And I want you to notice that how small acts have deep generational impact, okay? So the guy's name is Barzillai. And Barzillai shows up in a very small section of King David's story. So he shows up in 2 Samuel 17 for 3 verses, just 3 verses. And in 2 Samuel 19, he shows up for 7 verses. And that's all we hear of Barzillai. But his impact and his ministry of showing up had huge consequences for people who came after. So this guy, he never fought giants. He never performed a miracle. He never preached a sermon. He never wrote any of the books of the Bible. Yet when a king was at his lowest point, God used Barzillai to hold up an entire kingdom. So let's set the scene. So where he comes into David's story. So David, his son starts like forming an army to overthrow David. And his son wanted his throne, right? So he starts whispering, spreading rumors, and gaining kind of followers to overthrow David. And David finds out about this, and David's like, I don't want to fight my son, and I don't want to fight in the land that is so precious to me. So David runs. When he runs away, he says he brings with him his family, his servants, and his loyal supporters. That's what it says that David brings with him. And David then legged it out, abandoned throne, everything. He left everything behind, because it says that he left barefoot, weeping and mourning. That's how David left. So he wasn't gathering all of his riches and everything to support the family and the loyal supporters that were following him. He just ran because he didn't want a battle with this army. And so when he ran away, and then this is where we find Barzillai, right? Barzillai was from Gilead, and it was east of the River Jordan. It was a very fertile and prosperous land. And it was very removed from Jerusalem, politically and geographically, okay? So this makes the support of David from him even more significant, because he wasn't just helping a local king or someone on his doorstep. And also David was in a position where he couldn't give him anything in return. It was of no benefit to Barzillai to help, right? Barzillai was an 80-year-old man. Now, most people get to 80 and go, my impact is done. I've already made my impact. I don't have any more to give. I get to enjoy the rest of my life. But not Barzillai. He was continuing to make impact even at 80 years of age. And he is, because he was from this area, it was very rich and prosperous. So he was a wealthy man, and he would have had servants and stuff like this. So he decided that he wanted to help David in some shape or form. So he's like, let's bring food and whatever else we can carry down to David just to help him. Because David, remember, had nothing. Now, imagine David. He had been the provider for so long, the person who bestowed riches onto people and titles onto people, and all of a sudden he couldn't do that. And he's out in the wilderness, and he has his family and his loyal supporters and his servants, and he's nothing to give them. As a man, as a provider, that must have been so hard. And I bet they were like, you don't have to give us anything. We're following you because we support you and we love you. I just heard a buzz and I was like, is that a wasp? I'm going to run. We support you, we're loyal to you. But as a man, that provider is ingrained in you, and when you can't do it, imagine the stress and the weight on David's shoulders that he had to carry, that he couldn't help these people. So David was feeling like this, and then Barzillai is like, let's go down. Now, because he was a wealthy man, we know he was a wealthy man, he could have easily said, servants, I'm going to gather up loads of stuff. I want you to bring it down to David, leave it there. That's how we're going to help David. And that's a great thing to do. But it wouldn't have had impact. It would have met an immediate need, but it wouldn't have carried on for generations like it does when he shows up. So Barzillai says, I'm going to go. And so he gets his two friends, who were obviously two other wealthy men, and they would have had their servants and stuff with them, and they carry down, what do they bring? They bring beds, basins, honey, food, wheat, they bring all of this basic needs stuff, and they go down to David's camp where David is camped out, and they give it to him. And then Barzillai stays there, okay? So Barzillai decides to stay there. Him showing up and him impacting David in that way made God give him a place in Scripture that his name would last forever. Okay? And I believe that Barzillai represents something our culture desperately needs to see again. It's the power of quiet faithfulness and the ministry of showing up. So the world celebrates the loud men, but God celebrates the men who are faithful. The world remembers celebrities, but God remembers servants. The world rewards achievement, and God rewards faithfulness. But so does your family. Like, there's celebrities that I love, but they're not impacting the generations that will come after me. John is. And that ministry of showing up, the men that my daughter looks at in this church as men, as role models, yous are the people impacting my children's children. And I'm very grateful for that. Barzillai teaches us that some of the greatest men in God's kingdom are not standing in the spotlight. They are holding up the people who are. But they can't do that if they're not building relationship. You can't do that if you're not showing up again and again. There's this theory, and I got a picture of it sent to Roseanne. Just this theory that I have to teach in my class to my students, and it's called Tuckman's theory. And it's like all of if you work in big companies or you're parts of teams, you have to learn about this theory. In most companies, you'd learn it in like employee training and stuff like that. And it's essentially how a team or a group of people evolve and grow into like the perfect team. And every team or group of people have to go through these stages, okay? So I'm not worried about all the first ones. So you have like Foreman, Storman, Norman. They're like the stages that a team would start out at. So the group comes together, there's unclear purpose, they don't really know what to do, and they're trying to figure out the goal. So the group is like goal focused. And then when they figure out what to do, you move into the Storming stage, and they're like, now I know what to do, and now I'm trying to find my position in it. And you're trying to find where you fit in the jigsaw puzzles. Lots of teams get stuck at this stage, especially if there's like 2 or more people wanting the same role or want to do the same thing, or there's people pulling the opposite way. Then you go on to norming. So that's when you're focused, you know what the goal is, and everybody kind of has their own responsibilities and roles within the team, and you know what's going on. But then you move into performing, and performing is meant to be the most perfect state of a group working in tandem with each other, right? And what's gorgeous about this stage is that everybody knows their roles. Everybody is focused on the goal that the team are all working towards, so everybody's aware of it. But also, nobody's trying to steal credit, limelight from each other, right? And that's why it's important. So, like, if you're stuck on something, you go, I know Silvac's really good at that. I'm not so good at that. Although, as in my role, I'm meant to be good at that, I'm not. I'm going to go to Silvac and ask for help. Now, the reason I can go to Silvac and ask for help is because I've gone through all the other stages with Silvac. And so we've worked together for so long, and I have built a relationship with him. I know after he helps me, he's not going to run to Kathy and said, oh, by the way, I did that. That was not her. You paid her to do it, but it was me. And try to overthrow me because we're at this perfect stage. That happens in storming and norming stages. So you're working in perfect tandem. You're going to people for help. You're not hiding things from them. You are trying to do everything together. And that's the perfect team. Now, you think of it. If somebody showed up and your team is at that stage. So you are at that stage and you are working fantastically together. You can go to each other, be really open to each other. And then someone comes in and just say, for the church, we're trying to organize an event. And this guy comes in and says, like how I use the word guy, well, I'll say girl, right? This girl comes in and she's like, hi, I knew there was a meeting today and we're organizing such and such an event. I've the best way to do it. I do this in my everyday life, like I am awesome. John Reid, you stop. I am awesome. So I'm going to tell you how this should be done, and then we're going to do it my way. The group who have gone through all the stages together and know each other really well and work so well together are going to be like, who's this one? Right? Now, they're going to offend you by going, look, we want to do it this way, and you probably do this every day, and you are probably an expert in this field, and you probably have a much better system to do it than we have, but we don't have relationship with you, and you don't have a ministry of showing up because you've never been here before. And what's to say that we're not going to get halfway through creating this event and you're going to turn around and go, yeah, lad, sorry, I can't do any more of it, and you're gone. And then we're left trying to do it your way, and we're like, we don't know how to do it, and now the group is scrambling, and it has had huge impact on the group, and then the event doesn't happen. That is the difference when you have a ministry of showing up, and you turn up and go, I know how to do this. They're like, yes, you do know how to do it. Talk us through it, and tell us what to do. Where if you haven't got a ministry of showing up, you come along and you could be an expert. You could be paid millions to do this. The group still aren't going to trust you because you haven't had that ministry of showing up. And I want to use a real life example for this as well. So my father is a great man, right? An excellent man. My dad he can talk to anybody. He gets on with everybody he encounters. He's very funny. He's fun to be around. He can do anything, right? Him and my brother, they're the same. I'm jealous. They jump out of planes. They don't have to be strapped to anybody else. They do it by themselves. They drive planes. They scuba dive. Not on I went scuba diving level. They became master divers and dive shipwrecks and bring teams down. My dad can hunt, train hunting dogs, train hawks to hunt. My dad breeds pigeons, races pigeons, looks after pigeons. My dad builds extensions and garden rooms and has built houses, anything. Ask anything. He's done it all. He's just one of them men that has always been good at everything. And you can ring him and go, how will I do this? And he will say, the way you should do it is this. The way you can afford to do it is this. The safe way to do it is this. And he'll break everything down. He's an expert in many fields. But my father does not have a ministry of showing up. So he is an expert. He is fantastic. He's a great man. But he does not have a ministry of showing up. And that has impacted the generations to come after him. So Erin grew up, she called him Uncle Wayne's friend because she would see him when we were in my brother's house. And she never really knew his name. Ezra refers to him as the guy who bought him the train set. There's no, that's really weird. There's no lasting impact already in I'm his kid, the generation that came after me. The impact on his legacy is gone already. Was he a great man? Yeah. He's deadly, and he's so fun to be around when you're around him. And so your ministry of showing up is what creates legacy, what impacts generations to come. So back to the story. So King David was experiencing his darkest moments. His own son was leading a rebellion against him. David fled Jerusalem, He's falling apart. His family is fractured. The enemies are multiplying. Future is uncertain. Imagine that. The giant killer, the worshipper, the warrior is no more. And then Barzillai shows up, and it's not when David is victorious. It's not when he's wealthy. It's not when he can repay him. It was when he was weak. That tells us something. That character is revealed by who you help when there's nothing they can give you. The outcome was uncertain, and supporting David at this point carried real risk on your life, because if his son won, anyone who helped David would have been killed as well. Barzillai wasn't backing a winner. He was standing with a man in trouble. And we see this, that Barzillai built relationship with David, because he dropped off the food and the beds and the basin, and he must have stayed there and built relationship. It doesn't go into detail. It doesn't tell us like how long David was there. It's said that they think David was there a couple of weeks. So Barzillai must have stayed with him and built relationship. I'm guessing that because of the next scripture. So when David won and he was getting his throne back, David was leaving, and Barzillai said to him, I'll walk you down to the river. I'll trek with you that far to the river crossing. And he walked with him. If you haven't built a relationship with them, you're not going to be like, let me walk with you to stay with you a little bit longer. You'd be like, oh, I need a break from them, right? So he had obviously built a relationship. And when he was going, they were saying goodbye at the river crossing. And David stopped and said, come with me. Come with me so I can bless you and return the favor. I'm going to give you a place in court. I'm going to give you lands. I want to look after you the way you have looked after me. And that is the impact that he had on David, that David was going to give him a place and bestow riches onto him to repay him. And Barzillai said, look, I'm 80 years of age, I'm really old, and I'm actually not going to get to reap what I've sown, not for long enough anyway, and I'd like to reap it, and I want to probably go back to my own house and die in my homeland. So what I want you to do, David, is take Chinham with you. Now, some versions say that Chinham was his servant. Scholars seem to think that Chinham was his son, whereas Barzillai's son. So he said, take Chinham and bless him and look after him. And David says, anything for you. So David took Chinham back with him. And then we don't hear any more, but I'm assuming that David was a man of his word, right? And then if we skip on, which I think is cool. So when I started reading about Chinham and trying to find different things about Barzillai and Chinham, what I found was, if you skip on to 1 Kings 2:7, on his deathbed, on David's deathbed, do you know what he said? He said to the people around him on his deathbed, continue to show kindness to the sons of Barzillai. In the midst of everything he was telling them to do with the kingdom and to overthrow people and to battle this person and battle that, he stopped and said, continue to show kindness to the sons of Barzillai. All because he showed up. That's the ministry of showing up. And we don't have to just assume that they were looked after that, because, and this is not, so this is ministry is showing up, building relationship, having impact. Now let's look at the legacy, okay? So when you skip on, right, 400 years later, 400 to 440 years later, in Jeremiah 41 verse 17. So 400 to 440 years later, there is Jewish survivors, oh my God, and they are fleeing Egypt, and they stop outside Bethlehem to rest in a lodging place or It can be translated as an inn or a caravan stop. Now, these places just outside town wouldn't have been like a small little like B&B like the way we know it today. It would have been like a giant campsite, and you just came and you pitched a tent and you slept under the stairs. Like it would have been huge, right? So the Jewish survivors were fleeing to Egypt, and they decided to stop and take rest at Chinham's lodging place. 440 years later, his name still was being used because Barzillai showed up, passed his blessing to his son went, and 440 years later, his place that David had blessed him with was still being run as the same thing, still helping people rest there. That's legacy. Then people were from Bethlehem, and yet they said his name, and it was noted in Scripture as to where he rested. Your ministry of showing up can impact generations 440 years later. You just have to show up. That's the impact that I want to have on my family and on my church family. Relationships are missed out on when you don't show up. And then you lose the impact of the encounter that God wanted you to have. You know, when I first started coming to this church, I was kind of afraid of Sergio. Does anybody else have that? I was like, this guy is like the Don, like he's going to get me, right? I was afraid of Sergio, and I was really young. And then Sergio would say these things and then look at me, and I didn't get it. Agnieszka's laughing, she totally knows. He'd say these things, and I would like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And he'd be like, right. And he'd just walk off. And I was just like, I don't get it. And I remember saying to John, like, there's loads of stuff I don't understand. And John was like, is it his accent? And I was like, no. It's like he says things to me, and I'm unsure about the intent behind them. And I'm like, oh, that's meant to be funny. I should laugh. And then I'm like, he's such a serious face. He's not laughing. And then I'm like, don't laugh, Emma. If you laugh, it's rude. Obviously, you just don't understand the context behind what he's saying, so don't laugh. So I'd stand there going, don't laugh, I don't know what's going on, don't laugh. And he wouldn't crack, right? And John says to me, I think he's messing with you. And I was like, no, he can't be, he's the pastor. And John was like, no, I think he's messing with you. The next time he says something, laugh. And I was like, I can't laugh at the pastor. Imagine me going over and just going, laughing at him. And John was like, no, I promise you. The next time he says something like that, laugh. Laugh if you feel like you need to laugh, and see what happens. And I was so scared. But he said something, and I just went, like this. And then he went, now you get it. And walked out. And I was like, for months, he was teasing me. And he didn't have to say, I'm only joking. You know the way most of us, when we say a joke and it kind of like doesn't land right, you say to the person to make them feel comfortable, you say, I was only joking, and you laugh. Sergio found great enjoyment of watching you squirm, not knowing whether to laugh or not, right? And it's so true. And then I was on the other side of it. So Sergio asked me to decorate the church when we got the new building across from Centra. And of course, I had a relationship with Sergio, but like it wouldn't have been super close. It was a pastor, church member relationship. And I decided ministry of showing up. I'm going to go down there every day because I'm not doing anything else and I can help. And I went down there every day, and most of the days was just me and Sergio, and we had such fun. Because I showed up, it built a relationship that has impacted my whole life. Because Sergio showed me what a father figure should have been. Sergio, he stepped into that role when he knew I was comfortable with him being in that role. So once he was there and helping me, I was able to stop being just a survivor. I was able to move into my true nature as a woman and as a mother. And because I thought I couldn't do that. I thought I had to be this strong, unmovable force. But I didn't have to be the strong, unmovable force. And because I took the time and I showed up, I built a relationship with Sergio that taught me that I can be a soft mammy. I can let things slide. I can, all because of relationship. And so legacy doesn't only happen with John, me, my kids, their kids, but with your church. When you show up, when you spend time with people, when you build relationship, little things that you do and say will change their heart, will change how they view a situation. Like Sergio didn't lecture me or preach at me. He simply would say things like, but do you have to do that job? Do you feel like, let's ask John to do it and see how he gets on. Like just little nuggets of gold that changed my heart to go, actually, I don't have to. I watch my mum do it all by herself. I don't have to do it. I can let some of the leads go that I'm trying to hold on to everything. And that was the impact of relationship. So one of the greatest gifts a man can offer his family, his church, his community, his workplace, is to simply be present, show up, be dependable, and be available. We do notice you men. We do see you paying the bills. We see you fixing the problems. We see you praying quietly. We see you serving faithfully. We see you sacrificing privately. Other people can overlook them, but we don't. We see you, and we're grateful. And not only do we not do that, God doesn't do that. God sees the unseen act of faithfulness. The husbands who keep loving, the fathers who keep praying, the grandfathers who keep encouraging, the men who keep serving. The kingdom is built on people who just show up. So if there's an event on in the church, or there's something like that on, and the men all decided, oh yeah, I'll give money for that event, I'll send food for that event, I'll give everything that I'm great at, but I'm not going to show up. And then there's no men here, and 3 new men walk in the door, and they're just like, oh, this place is just all women. We'll never come back again. That has impacted their lives and their children's lives, and is anything going to change? Where if you don't worry about money and everything that you can give that way, if you're here and a man walks through the door and you say, I'm really happy that you came, you can have an impact on the generations that come after him and the legacy. Your legacy lives on then through them. As long as God gives breath, he gives purpose. He gives you opportunity to bless someone. If you are a man in here, remember, the younger men and women are watching you. They're watching how you move, how you carry your role in the church, how you encourage other people, and how you stand with the other men. Are we teaching them? Romy, this kind of feel like a dig at you, but it's not. It's written down before you came this morning. Are we teaching the young men and women that you come to church because your wife told you so? Sorry, we were slagging Romy about this morning. Or are we teaching them that you come to church because that's what God wants, that's what community wants, that's what impacts your legacy? Are we teaching them to pray? Are we teaching them to worship? I think there's animals out there. Yeah. Are we teaching them to pray? Are we teaching them to worship? Are we teaching them your main ministry of the ministry of showing up, getting out of bed and getting there? Because that impacts legacy. What I would like is for the men that's left, all the men left to see the animals, the men, I would like is at the end to take your sheets. I bet whatever's written on them sheets, you didn't set out to do. I bet you didn't go, I'm going to go and do this and fix this and have huge impact on that person's life. I bet you didn't set out to do that. But yet on these sheets is all the ways that you have impacted the members of our church. It's all the little things that you did to help somebody else. If it was something like you came and had a cup of coffee with me, I was feeling really down, and actually you cheered me up, and I went home happy, and I sat and played with my kids, and actually my kids always say, do you remember that day we played this? That was really fun. That was your impact because you showed up. So when you're finished, you can go and get your sheets and have a read over them. And I ask you to pray to Jesus and ask him, how can you continue to show up in these small ways? Because it's these small ways that have the biggest impact, and in turn will affect your legacy to come. Like, I will talk about the men in our church to our children, and Erin will talk about the men in our church to her children. If you showed up. If you weren't here, what's she going to tell them? It's like with my dad, he wasn't there. What do I tell them? So your ministry is showing up. Jesus, I just want to thank you for the dads in this church. The dads, the spiritual fathers, the fathers that are to be fathers in the future. I pray that you continue to move in them and show them other small ways that they can show up and impact generations to come, not only in their own family, but in our church family. Lord God, I'm grateful for the men in this church. I'm grateful how strong they stand for their families, how they pray for their families, how they show up for their families, how they show up for the other men in this church. I am grateful. Lord Jesus, thank you for sending these men to Word of Life. Amen. Men, go collect your sheets. Thank you.